Hey folks, welcome back. So recently we covered the Numenera slipcase set, the RPG from Monty Cook Games, which had the two enormous and fantastic books, Discovery and Destiny. But there's many other supplements, of course, to go along with the system. My priority was to get some cool new monsters, because I always love to have cool monsters in my role-playing games. And luckily, Numenera has a mess of them. So there are three Ninth World Bestiary volumes, all three of which you can see here in front of you. We've got the first one, which came out, I believe, alongside the first version of the core rulebook. So that was back in 2014 or so. Then we have the Ninth World Bestiary 2, which came out sometime later, and Ninth World Bestiary 3. The first thing you might notice, if you hold these up in direct comparison, is that Bestiary 1 is actually a little bit thinner than Bestiaries 2 and 3. So Bestiary 1 is 160 pages. And the other two are about 194 pages, I believe. So you get a little bit more monstrosity in the following two volumes. But they all contain a bunch of different stuff. I think some of them will be repeats from, a few small online PDF-only supplements or a few adventures or whatever. But it nicely compiles a bunch of new stuff all into one place for you. So we'll really take a look at the back of each of these, and then we'll dive in. I'm not going to look at every monster because that would take forever. I mean, there's hundreds of them. So what I'll do is I'll skip through page by page, show off the cool artwork, and when we find something particularly weird looking and cool, then we'll take a look at the actual text a little bit. So the Ninth World Bestiary is lavishly illustrated and wildly imaginative, featuring more than 130 creatures and characters. Offers GM advice on using pre-made creatures as well as creating your own. Includes lots of additional details about the Ninth World's complex far-future post-apocalyptic ecology. Ninth World parasites, transdimensional creatures, mechanical automatons, and extraterrestrials are just the beginning in the weird and wonderful setting of Numenera. Very good. Then Ninth World Bestiary 2. You can see it's got a lovely cover here. I've got some crazy floating, is that a bunch of brains, maybe? And this horrible bitey snake thing. The Ninth World teems with life and most of it is hungry. Great. So this book includes over 160 new creatures, an extensive index of creatures from products across the Numenera game line, random encounter tables for creatures from this book, the Ninth World Bestiary, and the Numenera core book, random tables to generate new creatures on the fly, and insightful, useful insights on the behaviors, beliefs, and relationships of Ninth World creatures. And then finally we have Bestiary 3, another lovely cover, quite vibrant in color compared to the other two. We've got some kind of multi-legged arachnoid / reptiloid thing. I'm guessing that's some sort of gigantic living creature, which I don't want to mess with particularly. Got some flying stuff in the sky, a little bit Cthulhuid tentacle faces on them. Don't know what the hell that is. So lots of interesting things to discover in here. And here it says, this lavishly illustrated tome brings 150 new Ninth World creatures and characters to life. Innovative features such as size comparison diagrams, one creature per page layout, and heavy cross-referencing rules make this book a joy to use, whether at the game table or while prepping your adventures. It also includes encounter tables featuring creatures from Numenera Discovery and Numenera Destiny core books, plus all three Ninth World Bestiaries, making it easy to look up creatures from every major source. So really, this is a great one to have because it kind of updates the info from the previous two volumes. It gives you encounter tables for different environments that cover everything in all three bestiaries, plus the two new core books. So that is very, very handy indeed. So yeah, we'll start with Bestiary 1 and flip through a little bit and see what we discover. So let's see here. We've got a lovely sort of size comparison diagram here. So where's a normal person? Are there any normal people to compare with? Must be somebody. I guess that guy is sort of normal-ish. So we have some real titans here. Quite a lot of large beasties. Yeah. So that resembles a sort of sandworm type thing. Or a dhole if you're a Lovecraft fan. We do have some tentacloid beasts there as well. Very, very cool illustration style. As usual, the layout on these Monty Cook games books is really fantastic. Everything's just so usable. So it's a basic summary here of how you use Numenera creatures. I mean, if you've read the core books, you understand the basics. Basically, creatures pretty much have just a level associated with them. That's the main number that does most things. They don't have stat pools, so they have a health number. That's how much damage they can take before they die. And they can give out certain amounts of damage. They might have armor as well. They'll have a movement definition. And then there'll be some modifications. So there might be certain things they operate at higher levels or lower levels for certain tasks. Then there'll be things they do during combat, and then some sort of ecological notes that are really useful for the GM. So what's the creature's motive? What is it looking for? What kind of environment does it live in? Can you interact with it besides just fighting it? Can you get loot from it? All that kind of stuff. So it talks about how to use these entries, making your creatures appropriately dangerous, fitting them into the world. And there's also often examples of GM intrusions. So how you could use a GM intrusion to add to the danger of a given encounter, which is pretty cool. Then there's some talk about the different ecosystems of the world and some creatures that are used as livestock that have been domesticated. So we have things like Kavots at level 1, Dossi at level 3, Draka at level 1, 2 for perception, 4 for defensive action, so they're pretty tough. Then we have some companion animals as well, like the Shanu and the Thuman. We have various types of creatures used as mounts, some of which are pretty tough, like the Razor Cat at level 5, the Side Drake at level 5 as well. Then we have an illustration of the Numenera life cycle. That's kind of interesting. Then we have some illustrations of the weirdness of Numenera creatures. And finally we get into the creature listings. So we have a listing of creatures by level. You can see there's a whole load of them. As the numbers go up, we get lesser and lesser creatures. So there's only a couple of things at level 9 and 10. Most campaigns, it'll be quite a while before you encounter creatures, even at level 7 or 8. So it makes sense they wouldn't put as many in at that level. And then we have our first set of random encounter tables. So depending on your environment, you'll roll a D100 and see what you'll come up with if you want to have a random encounter. And then we're into the creatures. So we've got this cool thing, the Accelerator at level 6. We've got, that's a weird thing, Astrophin Monolith at level 6. Let's see what that is. Floating immobile obelisks of stone, each Astrophin monolith stands a bit taller than a human and has a single crystalline eye. Infamously, this eye emits beams of deadly force that cause some explorers to suspect that something supernatural, willful, and diabolical is at work. However, the stones are neither living nor sentient, but rather extensions of a hidden intelligence. Okay, interesting. So their motive is hunger for flesh. Okay. They live in rocky mountainous regions. They have 30 health. They inflict 6 damage. They have 4 armor, so they're pretty tough. A fight with an Astrophin monolith is strange because it does not move. Simply fleeing out of its range is an obvious and viable tactic. Some choose to stay, however, to get at the crystal eye. The only action it can take is to fire a beam of energy at foes with a range of 200 feet. It can be a blast of raw force with 6 points of damage on one target, a ray of psychic energy that inflicts 4 points of intellect damage and ignores armor, a beam of nerve targeting energy that paralyzes one target if she fails a might defense roll. Each round, the paralyzed victim can attempt another might defense roll to shrug off the effect, or it can be a burst of feet that inflicts 3 points of damage on all creatures within immediate range. Of course, destroying the monolith is not a death for the plant, only a setback. Its leafy vines and roots can stretch for hundreds of feet around the monolith. Okay. Meaningful interaction is impossible. The loot you can get is the crystalline eye. It's prized because it can be used as a power source for a depleted artifact. It can also serve as a weapon, firing a blast of force that inflicts 6 points of damage with a range of 200 feet. Depletion roll of 1 to 3 on a 1d100. Cool. So now we'll just keep flipping through until we find more interesting stuff. We've got the Avatrol level 4, the Baliknut level 4. Notice that they do have little size comparison diagrams for some of these as well. The Bellowheart looks unfortunate. That guy looks a bit terrifying. The Blitzer level 5. We've got the Bloodfeast Tick. Sounds disgusting. We have the Calyptor, which is a bit dinosaur-esque. We've got the Cave Quee, which I guess is this horrible bat-like thing. I hope those aren't eyes. They look a bit like crystalline. No, I don't think they're eyes. Some kind of growths. We have the Chance Moth, which is a level 1, but presumably they can do swarmy stuff. We have the Chronal Feeder. They seem drawn to time paradoxes and disruption in space-time. They tend to eat those responsible and those affected, potentially alleviating the disturbance in the fabric of things, though that outcome may just be a side effect. First and foremost, chronal feeders are parasites that phase into existence near a spatial anomaly and feed to sate their own hunger. However, there are hints that the larvae may represent the first stage of life of a far more powerful and enigmatic entity. Oh, cool. So they attack with crushing mandibles, blah, blah, blah. They are unswerving in their drive to find prey. Only killing the creature can sway it from its prey, so no useful interaction. Okay. Then we have the Cockatan, which seems to be some sort of insectoid thing. We have the Dabiri, which is some kind of sea-dwelling construct, apparently. We have the Decanted. That's interesting. Perhaps a human decanted into an artificial form. They're intelligent and devious and have a reputation for kidnapping or paying a bounty for humans who are especially fit and beautiful. Such humans who fall into the metal hands of the Decanted are never seen again. Okay, it can create a visual distortion field, allowing it to move invisibly. If it attacks, it grabs a foe with hands much colder than ice, which inflicts damage and freezes the foe in place, causing her to lose her next turn if she fails a might defense roll. Once per hour, a Decanted can spray liquefied air in a sharp stream at one target within short range. The stream inflicts damage that ignores armor and requires a might defense roll. On a failed roll, the victim not only loses her next turn, but also moves one step down the damage track. Decanted is very cautious with its existence and breaks off the conflict if possible if it loses more than half of its health. Decanted nobility do not possess the standard abilities of regular Decanted. Most nobles have the average abilities of level 1 humans, however, a few are far more dangerous. Decanted is most interested in dealing with PCs who are considered to have above-average physical beauty. Characters who are obviously mutated or otherwise changed are treated with open disrespect. Interesting. Alright, then we have Dedimaskis, which is some kind of squirming horde. We have the Dimensional Husk. Okay, looks a bit like a multiple man sort of situation. The Dream Sallow. Oh, that's quite depressing atmosphere. We have the Drebel. This kind of bat thing with a sort of chunky stomach. We've got a Earth Shaker at level 8. Okay, it's highest level we've seen so far. You feel it inside first, a thrumming so deep your bones seem to shiver. Then come the tremors, shaking equipment, trembling trees, and swaying towers. When the Earthshaker appears, shouldering outside obstructions without the least effort, is like thunder given flesh and allowed to run free. A fully grown Earthshaker matriarch can reach heights of about 50 feet or 15 meters. An Earthshaker is usually content to graze the tops of forests, the entire tops of forests, choosing stands of vegetation that are quick-growing for that reason. But matriarchs are deadly when defending their herd. And check out the size diagram, by the way. That tiny little dot is a person. They have 80 health. They inflict 8 points of damage and have 4 armor. They have long movement, given their enormous size, I suppose. Speed defense is only level 4, though, due to their size. An Earthshaker attacks with an impressive display of tusks and it can target up to 4 creatures with a single attack. It can also make a trampling attack if it can get up to speed first by making a charge from long range. When it does, it moves 200 feet in a round, and anything that comes within immediate range is attacked. Even those who make a successful speed defense roll will take 2 points of damage. They're clever animals and prefer to ignore anything that doesn't threaten them. However, matriarchs can rapidly turn a peaceful Earthshaker watching experience frantic. A herd usually includes a few calves and 1 or 2 mates. Mates are about 3/4 as large, and calves are half as large. Okay. So not to be messed with lightly. We have the Audacious Destroyer. That person seems to be in immediate danger. Then we have the El Noika. Survivors who escape this voracious stalker describe either a completely invisible monster or a glowing terror the color of uncooked meat, whose outline continually shimmers just out of focus. Okay, some kind of dimensionally phased thing. Got the Ember Scion down there. We have the Encephalon. Oh, that's a very cool illustration. It seems to be sending out somewhat sinister-looking butterfly stroke slug things. Yeah. Oh yeah, I can spit out a new flock of cranial slugs. Okay. Cranial slugs, what do they do? On a failed roll, 1 or more of the flying purple slugs lands on the character, punches a proboscis through temple, ear, or other soft root to the brain, and inflicts 3 points of damage. It continues to attack each round until it has digested a total of 30 points of intellect damage. At that point, the slugs sweep back to the parent encephalon and are ingested into the creature's toothless maw, granting the encephalon 30 points of health. Okay, so the slugs suck out your brain and feed it back to the host. Gross. We have engineered viral hosts. We have a tactile host, an ocular host. We have a warrior host. Then we have an entrope. That's a pretty cool looking thing there. We have the ergivore hound. Oh, gross. Even as a dog lover, that's too much for me. We have an Erulian, which seems to be a floating brain. According to one particularly erudite Erulian, the world that these creatures originally hail from is one with a fluctuating cycle of dangerous energies that force them to adapt a changing physiology themselves. In their energy form, Erulians eventually learned to swim through the void between worlds and became the ultimate explorers. However, eventually their race rejected such pursuits, and now they value only mediation and contemplation. Of course, this directly contradicts similar details from other Erulians, so it is possible that some of these creatures are liars, who perhaps do not actually recall their race's distant past. I love the little flavor details in these entries. We've got an Eteric. Don't know what that is. Got a falling maw. So it seems kind of black hole devouring creature of some sort. Everything seems to be swirling into that central maw. Creates an area of zero gravity within short range all around it. Okay. Then we have the Furno Walker at level 6. Quite a large beastie, as you can see. And then we have the Flesh Pup. Ooh. Yeah, that does look unpleasant. It's only a level 1, but still. So it seems to be a kind of infecting agent. Then we have the Flying Elchin, which is a little bit adorable, actually. Looks like a somewhat, more realistic Pokemon or something like that. We have the Frilled Ball. Oh, let's go. We've got the Gazer. Okay. Looks kind of like some sort of interrogation droid from Star Wars or something like that. Just a level 1. We have the Gamorn, which is a level 7, some kind of energy being. Yeah, okay. One of the most terrible things about a Gamorn, other than its desire to kill every creature it happens upon, is that sometimes the screaming faces within are familiar. Wow, that is terrifying. Okay, then we have a Glacier Slime. We have a Golthiar. We've got a Gray Sampler. It's got some sort of bucket filled with juice. It seems unpleasant. We have the Griffalo. The Grush. Sort of a bit ogre-like, perhaps. We've got the Herder, which seems to be a automaton of some kind. We have the Hex. What is that? A clan-like organization, a virus, an army, a group mind, a curse. The Hex is all of these things and more. Okay. So this seems to have various different manifestations. The Hexon, Hex Stinger. Then we have the Hauntry, a flying creature with 4 wings. And it's carrying a dude, so it's enormous. We have the Ishenizar, Chrysanthemum, yes. A rather disgusting looking devouring plant-like thing. We have the Juralisk. What is that? Some kind of construct. And the cold touch of it drains the energy of all things around it. It can attack a character's armor, weapon, or other objects. If the creature strikes its target, the object, if less than level 7, is destroyed, and the character suffers 2 points of cold damage. Ooh, nasty. You can destroy your cool stuff. That's never good. Then we have the Calypton Crab. Well, that's interesting. Seems to be using machinery as a shell. Then we have the Canthid. We've got the Killist. Ooh, okay. A very disgusting illustration. The Kypros. Almost a jellyfish-like extrusion there. Okay, so it does not obey the normal laws of space or perhaps even time. It's impossible to know whether there are many of these creatures or just one. It seems to be an ultra-terrestrial being that comes from somewhere far less dense than this world. Okay. Explains the odd shape and movement of the thing. Then we have the Latos. This was the gigantic figure we saw in the size comparison diagram at the front. You can see a tiny little person there. So it's a level 10 creature, gigantic and mysterious. They're very rare, found only in the remotest areas of the beyond, or even beyond the beyond. Their creation is a mystery, but for some reason the people of a prior age decided to preserve locations within small, artificially closed universes and hide them away inside massive guardians. Oh, so inside of them is like a mini universe. That's pretty cool. Their motive is to protect that universe, I guess. They have 100 health. They inflict 12 points of damage. They attack in a straightforward physical manner. They can attack 2 different foes at once. They can lash out with horrific mental attacks. All creatures within 1 mile must make successful intellect defense rolls to suffer 8 points of intellect damage that ignores armor. Those affected must make a second intellect defense roll or lose their next action. All creatures within long range must make a successful intellect defense roll to suffer 12 points of intellect damage that ignores armor and move 1 step down the damage track. Those affected must make a second roll or also lose their next action. Or 1 creature within 1 mile must make a successful defense roll or have his consciousness transferred to an ethereal dimension where he wanders in a dreamlike world. A single round in the real world seems like a full day to the victim. He can be rescued only by an external source, such as a telepathic ally who journeys into his mind to find and retrieve him. A character who spends more than an apparent year in this dream state suffers the permanent loss of 1 point from his intellect pool for each year. In addition, for each apparent year, he must make a difficulty 10 intellect defense roll or go quite mad. Wow. That is quite scary. Okay, then we have the Lyric Scorpion, which is scary in a more generic, creepy-crawly kind of way. We have the Lurub, some kind of sea creature. We have the Megathan. Level 6, some kind of horrific snake insectoid thing. We have the Magmid. Oh, here we have the size diagram laid out for us on a nice double-page spread, which is handy. Then we have a Marteling Whale. So this is a level 9. It seems to have a city on the back of it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, there we go. They are typically very docile. Underwater, they fight more ferociously, motivated by the protection of their young, but they're actually hindered beneath the water, which decreases all levels of difficulty for the PC by 1 step. So they seem like, not something you need to kill necessarily. We have the Memora. That's horrible. What's going on there? Yeah, let's just skip past that one. Got a Mercadian soldier. We've got a Minern, which is some kind of, looks like a construct mixed with a fleshy insides. We've got the Molochs. Okay, they have a mechanical glowing third eye. Interesting. The Moral. And a Nagaina, and this is another one with multiple manifestations, so it seems to be the giant worm thing that we saw on the size chart. We've got a Defender, which is a small size one at level 3, an Awakened Sleeper at level 5, and the Matron, the massive one at level 8. So they are 15 to 21 meters long, not too shabby. Then we have the Nalurus, the Neveri, which is a very creepy looking thing, I have to say. Nebovian, okay. Seem like relatively normal beings. Mysterious, unfathomable ultra-terrestrials that likely do not perceive time, space, matter, or energy in the same way that we do. Okay. Nebovian wives use sex to open portals to other dimensions. Interesting, okay. Nycthemeron. Hideous, inexplicable, and inhuman. Yep, that pretty much matches the description there. The Oddlark. Got the Orgulus. The Peerless. Some kind of automaton. The Plasmar. It looks like a kind of cosmic superhero in the Marvel style almost. The Progenitor. They fear and hate surface dwellers, growing to 10 feet in height. They look human-like from a distance. Up close, it's clear they're dangerous predators, and that's even before they show their true colors. Okay. The Pygmy Hapax. This one's on the cover, I believe. So it's a level 5. No one can dispute their beauty. Well, I kind of dispute it. They have complex color variations. You can get tangled in their tendrils, holding you tight. Once caught, you must make a speed defense roll on the following turn to break free. If he fails, he takes 5 points of damage, and the color of one object in his possession turns black, starting with the highest. While he remains trapped, the difficulty of each new speed defense roll is increased by 1 step to a maximum of 10. Cutting or breaking the tendril is a difficulty 5 might-based task. Pygmy halfpacks occasionally swoop down and capture especially enticing object or creatures in their black beaks, dealing 5 points of damage. Okay. Ooh, that's interesting. We have a kind of snake tiger thing. Queb. We've got Quishamis, some kind of crystalline growth. That has a really huge exterior brain, which seems like quite a vulnerable spot, really. And that is a Quotian. It's actually quite small. We've got a normal dude there who's substantially bigger than it. We have a Rahinum. And this one has a couple of different manifestations. We have Perceptor at level 5 and a Courser at level 3. That's interesting. Then we have Relentless Reapers, which seem to be an automated menace. Then we have the Rog. Okay. So it's some sort of city-sized undersea monstrosity. Rokira. Rorathic. Oh, that I think is also on the cover, isn't he? Yep, right there in the middle. So some kind of abhuman of the Ninth World. Okay. These creatures are psychologically transformed. They become physically addicted to murder and death. Hunting and slaying consumes their every thought, and like most addictions, the need escalates. In this case, however, the escalation is not in the amount of murder, but the difficulty. Soon it lusts after intelligent prey that can fight back. As time goes on, the killer desires to take more and more difficult lives. Interesting. Okay, then we have the Ruritalian. That's kind of gross. It's got a bit of an exposed dish on its head. It's like reminds me of the Japanese mythical kappa in a way. Then we have a Scrivener. Okay. We have the Shanu. It's quite adorable. I guess this might be a kind of companion animal if it's tamed. It seems small and cute enough for that role. Then we have the Shivern. They were bred as living assassination suits. Okay. Seems like a bad idea in general. We have the Silver Orphans. Humanoid sheathed in reflective skins of supple, silvery alloy. We have the Sky Smashers. They arrive as a red blaze across the sky, leaving a trail of light and smoke. The streak is followed by a terrific boom, itself only a precursor to an even more dramatic event, impact. A fountain of earth erupts from where the Sky Smasher touches down, destroying everything in short range but the creature itself. Alright. I love the dramatic descriptions and hyper-gross illustrations in here. Every creature has interesting properties to make the encounter complicated. So we have the Spurn. You can see, everything has multiple combat abilities. A lot of them can be interacted with. You can, perhaps give them things they want so they'll go away. It's important to remember in Numenera that you don't get XP for combat. You get XP for discovery and for progressing your character's milestones, things that you want to accomplish in the story kind of thing. So these creatures, often the best course of action is to either steal the coolest thing they have or run the heck away. This is a level 10 here, a Titanosaur. They come in a variety of shapes, but all share one difficult to ignore quality, mind-blowing size. Good estimates put most Titanosaurs at over 300 feet or 100 meters in height. So we're talking Godzilla beasts here. And as you can see in the size diagram, the human is just the size of a toenail, basically. So yeah, don't mess with these guys. Then we have the Troll, the Unagran. Seems a kind of interesting looking underwater creature. The Valma. Interesting. A purple glowing tetrahedron. Intricate designs writhe across the faces, stitched in various hues of lavender light. They have a reputation as crazed automatons of a previous age, better left alone. Yep, sounds like a good idea. We have the Vape, which is... I don't know what that is. Then we have the Veridimos. Swirling mass of energy and particulate matter. Interesting. Got the Warder, which again seems to be some sort of automaton. The weaponized meme. That's interesting. So presumably it attacks you in an intellect-based way. Then we have the Tsar. The Zakorokax. That's hard to say. Yeah, level 6 construct with the horrible threshing maw. We've got the Zeomarsh and the Ilantiv, and then we have some NPCs. So we've got the Arch Nano with great mastery over Numenera, Deadly Warrior at level 6, a Poisoner, an extremely skilled assassin, and then some people of renown, Arendagast, Khalid Sabane, level 9, wow. Chelin Garatic, he's got worms in his eyes? What is that? Horrible. Deforth the Dreamblade. Desicali. Level 10. Okay. Dorgor Ok. Looks pretty cool there. Federist. Some kind of inhuman melding of machinery there. We've got Ilyania. Okay, her methods have earned her a reputation, apparently. We've got Jad the Hammer, Quaidino, Leverett Stamper, seems a happy dude, Magistrix Nelgadara, a lot of high-level important people here. Mila the Mind Slayer, yeah, I don't want to mess with that, and Seth, okay, seems like a deceptively simple name. Tyrannian the Scribe, Virgo, and then at last, the Whispering Green. And there you go. That is a quick flip through the Ninth World Bestiary Volume 1. So let's jump right into Volume 2. I really like the illustration on the front of this. It's a lovely kind of vibrant blue. Gives me the sense of sort of scary underwater world. I don't know what this floating multi-brain jar is, but I certainly want to find out. And we have another size chart. Fantastic. So I'm guessing that is kind of our normal dude comparator there, roughly. And yeah, we have lots more gigantic things here. Some sort of Mothra thing. Yeah, don't know what that is. A lot of these I really don't want to get to know. Some kind of horrible spider thing. Yeah, a lot of bad things going on here. So, part 1, we have some more help on using Numenera creatures. Then we have the creature listing themselves all the way up to page 185. Okay, so there's some sections here on the demonic fallacy, scourge companion or delicacy, and other creatures. Okay. The vast majority of people living in the Ninth World don't have a grasp of its expanse. Okay. Player characters, many Aeon priests, and similar characters gain a much wider exposure to different kinds of creatures. Common people don't have the knowledge or perspective to imagine that a thing nearly 20 meters tall that hungers for flesh is anything other than a supernatural beast of pure evil. So it's saying that basically your typical Ninth Worlder will think of most beasts as being terrors from hell, punishments from God or something, rather than living creatures with their own ecology, or that they may even be able to be companions or spoken to or interacted with in some way. Here's a handy table of ways to describe like relatively normal, non-threatening creatures in Numenera that will make them weird, which is cool. And then we get into the creatures. So we have the same kind of listing, decoding help as before. Now the creatures by level are broken up a little bit easier. Since there's more, it covers more than one page. So we go, there's quite a few level 5s, level 6s, level 7s. As we get again to 8, 9, 10, they get scarcer. Because you won't need a lot of those, because you'll probably kill a lot of characters that way. Then we have updated random encounter tables. Always helpful. Much expanded from the previous volume. And then we get into the creatures. So we have the Abacos Butcher, the Aleopter, the Aravelian, the Artifix. Interesting. Reminds me of kind of a weird version of Baron Harkonnen. Asomatis, the Arteric. I don't want to be swallowed by that thing, whatever that is. This guy I've seen before. I like this one, the Bannister. So they don't come from an alternate dimension, but rather a different scale. Normally part of the teeming flora and fauna that resides in a single drop of water, they can scale themselves up to hunt in the alien realm of the macro world, where their abilities are difficult for regular creatures to contend with. When scaled up, a gruesome Bannister's total length easily exceeds 20 feet or 6 meters. So it grows from a little nothing in a drop of water to this gigantic horror. One of their abilities is that they can attack you with disruption, which shrinks one of your arms or legs down to microscopic size and then back to normal size. And that inflicts 8 damage, which ignores armor. And you have to succeed at a might defense task to avoid that. And there's body theft, where if you fail a might defense task, you're scaled down to less than a millimeter in height. And suddenly it seems like you're in a bizarre dimension surrounded by amoebas and terrifying things. The scale change reverts itself within a minute, unless you're killed by something while you're shrunk, which of course is possible. So a really, really interesting creature. Then we have the Bestiaries that are believed to have originated far from the Ninth World. They're almost like living shadows or two-dimensional things. I've got the Black Tusk, it's a hunting wild thing. We have this adorable guy, the Brendril. It says they look adorable, but anyone who stumbles into a burrow or aggravates a pack that's out scavenging learns that these creatures can be dangerously territorial. Okay, never mind. We have the Candescent Sabon, which is an energy creature. We have the Capermag, vaguely avian abhumans. They fly on feathered wings whose tips have a span of nearly 9 feet. They delight in the act of killing their prey as much as they do in consuming it. We have the Carnivorous Color. This is an interesting one. It's kind of a trans-dimensional creature that can basically attack the mind of a creature with an immediate range. Its attack, of course, ignores armor. And to attack the Carnivorous Color, you need to attack the object on which it's currently residing. So this poor guy here, his arm is turning blue by this Carnivorous Color that's devouring him. If you wanted to attack it, you'd need to chop his arm off. So that's not great fun for anybody. Then we have the Chalik. They are 30 centimeter long insects protected by elaborate carapaces. They attack in large groups, and they look super gross. We have the Cleoid, which is some kind of gross snail thing. We have the Clicker, so composed of focused sound. Interesting. The Corpuscular Maw. That definitely doesn't look like a maw you want to be devoured by. We have the Crystalvore, small transdimensional bugs secrete a chemical that dissolves crystal. Interesting. Despite their name, they don't derive nourishment from crystal. They absorb ambient energy emanations through an unknown process. Okay. Then we have the Kulova Protector. This is the horrible spider silhouette we saw earlier. So what is this? Most Kulovas are peaceful creatures. Okay. But that's not so for protectors, who sometimes serve as scouts, negotiators, infiltrators, and even assassins. They're spidery humanoids with 8 spindly legs, a bulbous midsection, and a pair of human-like arms with 3 fingers. 8 eyes adorn their heads like colored beads above disturbingly broad, toothy mouths. You can see right there. They have health 25, they inflict 6 damage, they have armor of 2, speed defense as 6 due to quickness. They're normally level 5, as you can see up here. Stealth and interaction tasks as level 7, so they're very good at hiding. They prefer to attack from ambush. They can leave web traps, which are level 5 sticky nets that ensnare their victims, preventing them from taking any actions until they can escape. Attacking a victim in a web trap is 2 steps less difficult. They also rely on envenomed crossbows of their own making that inflict 6 points of damage plus 6 points of speed damage, ignoring armor, for 2 rounds for those who fail a might defense task. And they can spray venom from their mouths on all creatures within 10 feet. Victims must succeed on a might defense task or take 6 points of damage. They can speak several languages, including the truth. They're adept negotiators and delight in crafting deals that improve the standing of their Kulova group. However, they're not above false dealing. Okay. They usually carry a couple of ciphers and their custom-made crossbows. Cool. Okay, then we have Cyclic Raiders. Then we have a Cypherid. So these are creatures that attack those carrying ciphers. So if you manage to kill one, you can loot some ciphers from it, but you have a severe risk of losing some. The Doll is interesting. It's a 2-dimensional creature that tries to basically suck people into its own dimension, I guess. It says they're seeking to find the lost dimension from which they were cast out. Why that requires them to prey upon creatures from normal dimensions of space and time isn't clear. Okay. Then we have the Data Tar. So this is a creature that hails from the Data Sphere. We have the Dazzlegad. We have the Decanted Reaper. We have the Diperon. It's a very interesting looking creature with seems to have a clear weak point there and a bubbling plasma sphere on its back. The Dimension Worm. They hide in a parallel dimension but can see through the walls of the worlds to find new prey. Great. Another ambush predator. Got Dread Riders, Ebons, Effigies, the Elan, multiple eyes, make it really creepy. The Eldmore. This looks weird. What's this? Exogen. Among the bizarre dimensions is a class of planes called mirror dimensions. Mirror dimensions exist side by side with normal dimensions, but they are not parallel worlds. They're more akin to a parasitic fungus covering a tree. And within that parasitic layer, alien creatures called exogens roam, plucking creatures out of the base plane who usually have no idea they're being stalked. In practice, they are out of phase while they remain in their mirror dimension, and most of the time completely undetectable. But when they stretch their long reflective limbs into existence to grab prey, they seem to emerge from a shimmering reflective surface hanging in midair. That's usually the only time they are vulnerable. They don't eat the creatures they catch, but instead set them loose in the mirror dimension, treating them like pets that can never get free. Yikes. Okay. So they stalk potential targets by following them from the safety of their mirror dimension. So they're normally level 4, but all tasks related to stealth they do as level 6. Okay. An attacking exogen becomes visible for a few rounds as it attempts to snatch prey from the base dimension. A target damaged by an exogen must succeed on a might defense task or be pulled through the interface. Once a target is pulled through, the exogen releases it and offers no further aggression unless attacked by the target. Otherwise, the target is free to act as it wishes, though it remains trapped in the mirror dimension until it can find some way to escape, which is difficulty 6 intellect task, or until it dies. Great. Okay, then we have the Faradoc. Not sure what that is. The Flaw. Easily mistaken for a person. Close up, it's apparent they've undergone some kind of accident or procedure, leaving them in a stitched-together state of mismatched skin, extra or missing limbs, missing or extra eyes or mouths, and a stretched, not quite human face. Yep, sounds gross. We have Fusers. We have Gaffalin. Not sure what that is. Weird rock formations, apparently. They emerge overnight, standing 9 to 15 feet tall and shot through with purple crystal. Okay, we have the Gavanic, which seems like an oversized bacterium almost. We have the Gru. They look very much like pale humans with large heads that resemble strange Numenera devices with glass panels for faces. Cool. So they wield storm staves, medium melee artifact weapons that inflict 3 additional points of damage from electricity. They also employ poison against their enemies when possible. And they have an armor derived from an artifact called electric armor that inflicts 1 point of damage on any creature that strikes the Gru in combat. Cool. We have the Gloxim. We have the Glarisk. Glarisisk. Some of these are hard to say. The Golden Kachinate. The Hanik. It's kind of gross, sort of fleshy, goopy thing. Hungry Predator. Okay. We have the Healdran. An aquatic abhuman race. We have the Hungry Penon. They are symbiotic beings that psychically attach themselves to another creature. The more aggressive and intelligent, the better. Okay. Over time, the Penon gains mental ascendancy. The hungry Penon wants to feed, and it prefers to scavenge the bodies of freshly killed prey. Thus, it drives its hosts into more frequent and more vicious conflicts. So it possesses your mind, gradually takes over, and pushes you to fight until you die, and then eats you. Excellent. We have the Iani, some kind of partially automated creature with no face. Always interesting. We have the Ice Weaver, which looks suitably disgusting. We have the Edic. Disgusting, unexplainable, and appallingly affectionate. Okay. Interesting mix of descriptors there. The Igothus, hailing from the desert. The Immorphin Gonoff. And here we have the Emustin Crawler. He's on the cover as well. He winds its long, flexible body down from an overhanging structure. The creature's diamond-shaped head, crusted with fangs and eyes, is it nearly as horrific as its ability to cause its victims to secrete a numbing gel that not only holds them in place, but also drowns them from the inside as their lungs fill with gel. Okay. Interesting. They're intelligent but secretive, so you can potentially talk to them. Yeah, interesting. Then we have the Incana, which bears somewhat of a resemblance to a Mind Flayer from D&D. But they are creatures of darkness and terror, wormed their way into this universe from somewhere else. An otherworldly realm, it is said, that they devoured entirely. Okay, doesn't sound very promising. The Ixobricid, some kind of creepy tentacled starfish thing. We have the Adjacent Wing. It has an interesting table of possible things that could happen to you. They include things like being shunted to a pocket dimension. A crystal version of the PC pops out of a parallel dimension and falls on the real character. A doppelganger appears from an alternate dimension for a few rounds. Target's hand or foot becomes lodged in an alternate dimension. Oh, interesting. Then we have the Jasmeris. Wide-faced flower-like plant with bright scarlet petals, and they smell wonderful, apparently. We have the Dreet, that's on the cover, and is thoroughly disgusting. I don't want to read any more about it, thank you very much. The Gibral, a sea predator that routinely reaches 16 feet or 5 meters in length, as we can see from the size comparison up there. They eat anything. Okay, stay away from them. We have the Cowrund, which is absolutely enormous. Almost 80 feet or 24 meters long, not counting the length of its tendrils. Health of 75, and inflicts 10 or 8 points of damage. Yeah, not to be messed with lightly. Then we have the Carastrel, aggressive seabirds. We have the Cassayer, unstable abhuman predators with a hereditary psychosis so extreme that it grants the creatures dread mental abilities. Okay. The Keeper, and the Keltoneme, some kind of horrific bat thing. We got the Kelursan, the Kissing Fawn. Oh, it's adorable until you see its tentacled mouth. It's really gross. We have the Klax, reminds me a little bit of the blue arcane from the old Spelljammer days of AD&D 2nd edition. Oh, I miss those days. A humanoid with bluish skin and a tall, stretched head without hair, eyes, or nose, but a very wide and expressive mouth. They apparently hail from some other world or perhaps an alternate dimension. They refuse to speak of their origin and become defensive and angry if pressed. They are interested in broken oddities, used ciphers, and fragments of synth. They offer to pay with shins. Okay. They're collectors of sorts. We have the Croth, an 8-foot-tall amphibious creature that lives most of its life half covered in water. Oh, gross. Then we have a Lacaric Courier, delivering objects to different locations. Okay. The Lambriquin looks a bit like a predator. It's kind of cool. Then we have the Lanmoro, which has a psychic field that randomly triggers strong emotions. Okay. The Laurus, abhumans with glistening beaked mouths, dagger-like claws, barb-studded shells, and burning green eyes. The Latos Adjunct, abhumans with bodies composed of strange alloy and a transparent sphere for a head. Within the sphere is a misty face, one that each viewer recognizes as their own. Oh, that's creepy. We have the Laerdite with far too many legs and arms. It's just way too many. Machine Eaters. The Malorc, kind of a gross stingray thing. The Malvok, spider-like limbs instead of arms and legs, and their faces are horrors of specialized mouth parts designed to puncture flesh and suck out a victim's insides. Great. The Mazokakoth. They're a massive phased entity towering at least 300 feet or 90 meters. Has many legs like a spider, allowing it to move nimbly across mountain ridges and desert ravines alike. Then we have Mercurial Wasps. The Mimus, shooting little slugs. That's always a bad thing if you ask me. But the Menethashi, arachnoid human amalgams with cruel claws, may have extraterrestrial origins, but their kind has dwelled on Earth for as long as the Ninth World has existed, and probably much longer. Okay. We have the Moilt. Ooh, that's creepy. Many-eyed Moilt shambles on a tangle of thrashing tendrils. Okay. Morigo are biomechanical remnants of a prior age. We've got the Mosic Automaton. A machine intelligence with no apparent physical form. Instead, it flits from server to drone to ancient machine to artifact and on to some other mechanism by compromising and overriding the previous controlling consciousness. Okay. So it makes physical attacks with a bladed wing, pincer, tentacle tip, or some other implement related to its form. However, a mature Mosaic automaton, one that's fully transformed, usually relies on psychic attacks that disrupt the thought processes of organic and machine intelligences. A target within long range must succeed on an intellect defense task. On a failure, it takes 5 points of intellect damage, and the difficulty of its actions is increased by 1 step, while it remains within long range of the automaton. A target that is defeated by a Mosaic automaton may be killed, though some survive. Those that do are infected with a nanoscopic parasite that slowly begins to change their flesh in random and usually horrible ways. If desired, the GM can refer to the harmful mutations list. Great. Most Mosaic automatons regain health at a rate of 1 point per hour, even when they are at zero health. The only way to eliminate this ability is to destroy the automaton utterly. If it communicates at all, it usually does so in broken psychic images that tend to nauseate humans and rarely offer any real chance of negotiation. Okay. But you can... the inactive remains of a defeated automaton can be salvaged for 2d6 shins and 1d6 ciphers. That's not bad. Oh my god, what is that thing? Looks like a T-Rex with tentacles for a face. Let's freely skip beyond that one. We got a multi-troca, bred for war in a prior world. The Nacreon Wind, so some sort of immaterial creature, can move from a concentrated state to a dispersed state. We have the Namnesis, composed of silvery liquid metal. We've got the Nosrak, which are accumulations of toxic fungus. Ew. The Navarak, kill and eat prey of all kinds, but have an irrational hatred for humans. The Nianic, what if the mere sight of something could kill you? Okay. It drains minds dry merely by being observed. Those few who have survived an encounter describe it as appearing as a warped, shadowed, and malicious version of themselves, showing everything they most detest. If viewed by several people at once, it becomes all the more horrific as its flesh writhes and bubbles to simultaneously reflect that which those who see it hate most in themselves. Wow, terrible. We got Neurodrods. Okay, Nibovian domicile, living constructs that appear as sturdy shelters with at least 2 rooms. Interesting. Nibovian guides. So expanding the Nibovians from the last volume. The Nildir, which is thoroughly disgusting. Look at that thing. Creatures of endless hunger who slip between the folds of reality to hunt literally everywhere for their next meal. Once human Nildirs, also called planar cannibals, were exposed to one too many transdimensional transitions, planar bleeds, and perhaps even shocks to their ego. They hunt humans, abhumans, and other beings with knowledge that seasons the flesh. Though anyone alive, or recently so, will do. Okay. Then we have the Nomine, the Null Cat. Looks like one of those star-faced mole things. Just a regular old octopus. The Oleon, abhumans of some kind. The Omath Ranger. They live inside translucent slabs of unmelting ice studded with unknown devices and machines. Okay. Onrakas. Orgolian Testers. Warts. Otolans. Overlord Automatons. Oxyratals. Phase Losts. Phasics. Ferrotherms. Pistrians. Celes. Puppetry. Okay. Peeth. Immense and only partly material. Seem intent on winning an eons-long game that is inscrutable to other beings. Interesting. The Quar Bastion. The Quover. They transfer their consciousness into fox-like creatures about 6 meters in length. Okay. A Rapicaw, some kind of insectoid. A Reconstructor, animate collections of synths, struts, and other repurposed objects of the prior worlds fused into a mishmash of functionality. The Redintegrad, the Residuum. So this seems to be a datasphere-linked entity of some kind. We have the Rumos, a living, animate, free-roaming, extra-dimensional space. Okay, seems bad. The Rithkalocker, dozens of staring eyes. Yep, nope, go past that. Sasquand, Scuttling Metheglin, Seski Tracer, Shadow of the Void. An ideal assassin, it appears only as a shadow cast on a surface if it's visible at all. Okay. Shatarak, the Shagwar, Vicious Predators, apparently. Somnimal, relying on subtlety and stealth to hunt. The Sorg Warbreaker, a void-adapted species that live in the empty night far above Earth. Oh, so they live in the vacuum. That's cool. We have Soshins. They seem to more human-like. Spiny Skishans. Stalking Shades. They look scary. Steel Angels. Steeds and Stitchers. The Sweel. A Simbate. I mean, so many creative designs. This is the guy I wanted to see. The Syzygiid Instructor. An automaton with a stylized visage of a human head, poised over a sealed, transparent vat in which disembodied brains float. Has a reputation for being an oracle from which immense knowledge can be learned as long as one is willing to accept some risk. Whisper your question and then press your ear to the fleshy cavity at the vat's apex. The Syzygiid Instructor imparts the requested knowledge directly into your mind, unless it decides to add your brain to its collection, in which case your mind is pulled out of your head to join the others floating in the vat. Okay. Whether the minds in an instructor's vat maintain independent thought or become incorporated into a greater psychic construct isn't known. Even if the latter eventually occurs, it's likely a stolen mind retains its individuality for at least a few hours or days before succumbing to the whole. Okay. So they do 20 health, they inflict 5 damage, 2 armor, they have long movement when flying, they resist mental attacks and deception at level 7, despite being level 5. They make ranged mental attacks at level 7, motes and knowledge tasks at level 8. They prefer to avoid combat. If it decides to take a mind, it does so only to someone who has asked a question and pressed its head to its intake cavity. Each round, a chosen victim must succeed on a might defense task or lose their next turn, remain fixed to the side of the vat, and descend 1 step on the damage track. A victim who fails 3 might defense tasks loses their brain, which visibly plops into the vat as the body collapses with a perfectly round hole in the skull, revealing the empty cranial cavity. Getting the brain back would require a significant intervention of knowledge and technology. Okay. If attacked, a Syzygiid Instructor has an impressive library of level 7 mental abilities to call upon, as determined by the GM, including range attacks, mind reading, invisibility, and teleportation. They're perfectly amenable to a negotiation, but they would have to be offered a high-quality mind in return for giving up one is already taken. So there's a hint how to get a brain back. They can be salvaged for a few ciphers and perhaps an artifact. That is a fantastic idea for a creature. I love it. Then we have the Tanaras, the Tanglet, some kind of lizard snake thing, some sort of Cthulhuid horror beast, the Pterodel, some kind of reptiloid, the Thex, part flesh and part mechanism. The Threadwalkers. Seems like puppet-like facades dressed in harvested human skin and clothing that hide a mass of writhing milk-white tendrils. They make up a portion of a larger trans-dimensional race or single entity, called the Thread. Gross. Really gross. Thundercrown. Okay. A Thusk. Interesting. I think that's on the cover as well, isn't it? The Tumbrium Hunter. Ebony-skinned, hairless, and with eyes covered with goggles to limit their natural shine. They hail from a dimension of pure thought called Kilirilian. Masters of mental self-discipline and the art of hunting and fighting, they're considered dangerous foes, but when an accord is reached, they can be powerful allies. And they look really stylish as well, gotta say. Torlith's Companion. Okay. The Ulenic. That's a pretty kind of distended, weird-looking thing. The Umem. Glowing red stomachs and claws. Eyeless, their heads are streamlined like those of a burrowing animal. Their skin is slick, but clods of dirt and rock adhere to them here and there, as if the creature regularly bathes in dirt. Alright, we've got the Unrast, whatever this is, Urtilla. Versicolor Truiscal. Awkward, lumbering beasts about twice the height of an average human. They have too many legs or not enough, and each one seems to be at a different length. When they're walking, they look as if they might topple over at any moment. But when they're floating, they're a beautiful, breathtaking sight. A splash of fluid grace and color against the sky. Okay. They attack with stalks and claws for 6 points of damage. Then we have Vesiids, Vimriths, Vunex, Vows, Rorordans, Vuranine, Welds, Warrens, big level 8 monstrosity. Look at the tiny, poor tiny human over there. The Zist. Okay. Interesting. So they kind of disguise themselves as rubble using these crusted up wings they've got. We've got the Edelhath, the Zandro, and finally the Zairn, and we have a few characters. So it's a nice handy table here for generating NPC quirks, motives, and possessions. Then we have an Aeon Cavalier, started as Aeon Priest, but decided to adapt their technological enhancements mostly to martial ends. So they're the fighters of the Aeon Priest Order. We have Cypher Zealots. When a student of the Numenera modifies themselves using bits and pieces of tech taken from the ruins, the result sometimes has negative consequences for sanity. Okay, they operate with crazed speed and intensity. Then we have the Hollow Glaive. They appear like humans who wear full suits of armor. Okay, they mimic a semblance of the wearer who died, and they may attempt to accomplish the last stated goals of the dead wearer, but without speaking or revealing their faces. It's as if the armor was somehow imprinted with the mind of its former owner, although imperfectly. Interesting. And finally, we have the Released. Where they were released from, who took them, and why. All that has been burned out of the minds of the Released. Pain racks them, as do sudden mood shifts that veer wildly between extreme fear and extreme aggression. Okay. So another fantastic set of very creative creatures for the Numeneran worlds. We've hit the hour mark, so I'm going to take a quick break here. And we'll come back in part 2 of this video, where we'll look finally at Bestiary Volume 3. So look forward to that. Until then, keep well, stay safe, and look forward to seeing you in the next video. All right, take care. Bye-bye.